for your help. So we can now continue with Professor Savvidy.
So, first of all, I want to congratulate George with all his achievement and reaching the retirement. So you will see that it is a great time. So you will enjoy, I am sure. So listening to the talks today, I mean, all aspect of his life was described. I mean, as he's teaching, how he's doing lectures, organizing conferences, drinking, family business, trips and so on. So I was thinking, what remained to me? So the only two areas which I was thinking might be there, people did know, it's when you write the poetry and music. So just tell me, did you have activity in that region? Because when people talk at fest of the colleagues, my experience say that people mostly talk about themselves instead of talking about the person in fest. So, and I will be not exclusion from this simple rule. So, I was born in Soviet Union and I was Greek origin, and definitely I was dreaming to be in Greece. So in '92 I was in Germany, and actually before I find the proceedings of the Corfu conference, and there was article of Veltman about review of properties of the Higgs boson. Was very beautiful article. I don't know if the people have seen this review. It was published. I think that you was editor, and also Argyris were editor on that volume. Was very impressive, and I was thinking there is really should be beautiful conferences, and so I never been in Greece. So I write to Yorgo that I want to visit the conference, and he invited me. So I come first time to Greece in Corfu, and I kiss the airport land because after 200 years, somebody from my family returned to Greece. So the first task, George appointed me to be a chair of the meetings, and guess who was the speakers? It was Kostas Kordas. So I great physicist, so I stay there and I wait the time. So half an hour time pass of his talk, and he continues to talk. So 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed, 15 minutes passed, and I was, confused. I don't want to stop you. And then he turned to me and said, "Look, guys, then you stop me." The next things is, Kostas come to me and say, "George, let's go for a trip, in the car." I said, "Do you have the car?" "Yes," he said, "I take from George Zoupanos." So we take the car, we drive somewhere, and he hit some other guy with the car, so it was damaged. There was a noise and so on. So the guy was shouting on Costa. And I say, look, why you are shouting? He's one of the great Greek modern physicists. You should talk with him nicely and so on. He said, "I don't care. He give 5,000 drachmas. That's will be fine." So he told him, and then Costa say, "Look, George, you should not say to Zoupanos, keep it secret. You should keep secret." And the guy who grew in Soviet Union, where KGB was around, I knew how to keep the secret. So you never talk, you keep the secret. So the next day, I come here and people ask me, what happens with the George car? What happened? So I think that he was not bored in definitely solitude. So he had no idea how to keep the secret. So what else I want to talk about? So it is a great achievement, of course, to organize these conferences for so many years, so many efforts to be able to invite brilliant physicists here and to have very high level conferences, to organize in the there is a lot of entropy, and to how much information was to put in the system to have organize this event is a huge effort, and I really personally very much value this your achievement, which you for years you succeeded to do it. And also it's amazing that you elevate it to European level and not organize just one conference, but chain of the conference, one after another, and in very important areas of the modern activities in science. So thank you very much for inviting me first time to Greece, and wish you all the best, good health, and to you and to your family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next speaker is Dr. Anamaria Hell.
This is a bad idea. Okay. So, okay. So first of all, thank you very much for this pleasure to say a few good things about George Zoupanos. So George, we've been working together now for exactly a year. We have actually started a year ago at this summer school, but when I have asked you, can we please work together? And of course you said yes. And our first project was a project in non-commutative geometry. So we were actually exploring if there are any connections with cosmology and George's model on fuzzy gravity, and then exploring also the continuous limit. Now, this project actually was not only with George and me, so there were also his students there. And what he right away did is he right away included me into his group, and we started with weekly meetings every week, starting with Saturday. Now, you know, at one point, actually somebody has scolded me. Somebody has said that professors never work over the weekend. Yeah, this is a serious story, yeah? However, this is actually not true for George. So we had meetings on Saturday, on Sunday morning over Skype, and we had even discussions on Friday nights. And I'm not complaining about it because it was absolutely fantastic. Working with him is really wonderful. He's so supporting, he's engaging, and he has such fantastic physical intuition about everything, and it's really a pleasure. Now, our next project was actually in higher derivative theories of gravity, and in particular the conformal gravity, where we have also worked with Dieter Lust. And I cannot express what an honor it is actually to work with both of you on this project. I have really enjoyed all of our discussions. You're extremely uplifting and constructive, and it's really a pleasure. Now, during this project, I have actually learned a lot about George from the other side. So I have learned that we both share a great taste in good Croatian rakia and in French cheese. And also that I have learned also that we have very poor space coordination. Now, in one of our trips to CERN, actually the only trip to CERN, George was actually driving me with the car. And of course, we got lost on the way to CERN. even though Dieter has actually the one day before us warned us that we have to actually use the Google Maps, because that might happen. But we arrived safely after the day of travel. Also, what I would like to say is that George definitely has a superpower. Now, what is his superpower is that everybody around him feels like he or she belongs to one very big family. And I think that this is one really fantastic power that George has. And also, of course, he's very, very direct, which I very much appreciate. So I cannot honestly express how much I'm grateful to have this opportunity to work with you, to collaborate with you, to share also a glass of wine. So from the bottom of my heart, I would just like to say to you, thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next speaker is Dr. Gregory Patellis. Gregory, the floor is yours.
Yes, yes, you can hear me. Yeah, I'm gonna be brief. Okay. So finally, okay, I met George 13 years ago, which from my lifespan is quite a lot of time. And he was teaching back then the elementary particles 2. Okay, so this was back in 2011, and then he became a supervisor. To me, I wanted to join his team, and this continued over the years until he was my PhD advisor. And we of course continue our collaboration and our friendship after all these years. So it's 13 years for me, and several publications, and also 14 Corfu workshops and school that I've been to, and we've been together here. So over. Yes, I'll come to that. So with all these 13 years, some people of bad intentions will say that there was some friction sometimes, but nobody lost their temper. And as Anamaria said, he's very enthusiastic about everything and about doing the work and everything. And I will also share a story that we used to, at some point during my PhD, I preferred to work late at night. And George didn't sleep very early, so we used to speak around 1, 2 a.m. sometimes over the telephone. But one day, I don't know in which time zone he was, but I suspect he was in Europe. And he called me at around 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. I was asleep. I said, "Are you asleep?" On my landline, yeah. I said, "Not anymore." I said, "Okay, because I'm calling George Zoupanos and he's answering." "Yes, he's probably sleeping." "Ah, yeah, okay. So since you're awake, I have a question about that term." And he continued talking. So yes, Corfu. And Corfu was like a checkpoint, like a checkmark of our relation and so on. But let me just list what I hopped on George's research over the years. We started working together at the theory that he was working on. Many people talked about that. Miriam talked about it as well, in the reduction of couplings method with the minimal SU5, which was very successful in the 90s. And these models continue, the finite models continue to produce successful predictions. And then we also work together in the realization of a theoretical framework that comes from the Kostas space dimension reduction. That was, of course, formulated way before I entered university or his team, and we continue to work together. Now, Corfu. This is like a checkpoint of what happens every time. indeed, we have a great time here, and after all these years, we're not only collaborators, so that I consider him not only my mentor, but also a friend and part of the family, right? So not only it's not only me that says this, though. There are many, many of George's friends that love not only meeting him in Europe and elsewhere, but also visiting Corfu, which is this Corfu workshop and school, maybe his greatest the greatest work of his life. And he's been the heart and soul of this conference and school and workshop for so many years since he began. And lately, there is all this effort of having these buildings after all these years to have space here for the participants to also work. So all these people that come here and admire you, I'm very sure that they all want to thank you, even the ones that didn't have the opportunity to speak. So we're all tired now. So all the participants that spoke said many, many nice things about your qualities, about what makes you so special. But every time I think about it, I think of something else. This as well, but something else that stands out, that makes you stand out. And this, in my opinion, is moral integrity. And this is not very easy to find. Okay? So thank you for guiding me and for being my friend. And the 13 years now, and here's to 13 years more and more and more and more. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. So the next speaker is Professor Kordas.
Thank you very much. Hi, George. Hi, all. I only have two anecdotes to say about George because I met him for the first time really 2 years ago when I came for a day and a half to give a talk. I'm a poor experimentalist, by the way. I'm not in the sea of theorists here. So I came with my wife and my son 2 years ago to give a talk, and it happened on the day of a concert up in the palace. And then as we're walking up, my son sees George and say, "Hagrid from Harry Potter." It was exactly fantastic. He was very impressed. And the other thing was, I really started working with George on organizing some of these conferences with his idea of having a school, which happened this year for the first time, on the Future Accelerator and physics with future accelerators. And it's great, his dedication, his way of running the meetings and of finding solutions to all the problems. And I know the stress he goes through every time there is a meeting, and especially with unpredictable Greek bureaucracy. And but it was the first time at the Future Accelerator workshop, end of this April, where I stayed from the beginning, before the start of the conference until the end, to see all this. And I had the opportunity to go through the Greek night, and where I really realized that everybody has such a fun here. And I was telling to George, what is this that is happening here? And he told me, here we do not play. So we are doing serious, we are taking seriously these events, you know. So I have this as a motto for George. So George, you have established all this, and I wish you to have the power to bring it to the end and have the buildings ready and have it permanent. It seems to me like a perfect retirement plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Kostas. So the next speaker is Professor Saridakis. So the floor is mine. Okay, so as George said, there are not many more things to say about George. I mean, okay, his scientific part and contribution is well known, and many of you have talked about that. And also the history of the Corfu schools and conferences that we are 42 years now. And of course, the friendly, and I like the word, kind character that George is, and we all know, and we are happy that we are his friends, and we are seeing that every year. So I will focus on a few things that probably most of you do not know. The first is educating students, because during all these years, apart from the senior people, we have managed, and George has managed for 42 years to educate young students. Of course, many of them were well-known professors after that, but there are hundreds of students that have passed here. And let me state here that before the crisis, all the expenses for the participation of these students here were covered. Everything, accommodation, meals, travels. So this is crucial, because in the end of the day, students are the new generation, right? So we need to educate them. And this is something that George is not common, as you know, in academic circles, but this is something that George put it as a first priority from the start of the schools. And I remember I came here for the first time as a student 22 years ago, right? And we had a class by George and the others. I mean, we were many students, and suddenly someone got in and said something happened in New York, some planes fell in the towers. So we always remember the first school, but after that, many generations of students came here, and this is very important and not at all common. Now, the second thing that probably most of you don't know is how active is George in the popularization of science in the island. Because during these conferences that you hear and you see the talks here, George is struggling to organize public talks in the islands, in many areas, where hundreds of local people, common people, are coming and listening for the advantages of science. And this is very important, because in the end of the day, we are being paid by taxpayers. So the results of science needs to be back to the common people. They pay us. And George has this as first priority. And even these days, also we have a series of public talks downtown. And we hope that the local community will join us as always. And actually, another issue, which is in between, is that George had put as priority to educate now the physics teachers in the high schools in the island. So we have specific activities in educating the physics teachers in high schools about all the advances of modern physics, in order to be able to transfer this knowledge to the young people. And this is also crucial. Now, let me finish saying that George is a perfect example that a scientist should have also a social role. And in this sense, I mean, he follows the tradition of big people like Einstein, Russell, Oppenheimer, Hawking, and the others, because you see, you cannot be curious about how natural phenomena work without being curious of how social phenomena works. Nature is one. And George has put that in his whole life as a priority. In a sense, as Erwin Schrödinger said, that the scientist, when he's going to enter his lab, he cannot live outside the lab his social and political views in the same way that he puts and leaves his hat and coat. And this actually was the recipe behind George's life. And let me finish saying that George is struggling for 42 years to establish this Corfu institution of science and application, struggling and fighting with Greek bureaucracy, and the progress is huge, as you may see. And he has managed to bring together, which is not easy, the local municipality of Corfu, the National Technical University of Athens, other institutions like CERN or National Observatory of Athens, which is not an easy, the Ionian University, of course, which is not an easy task. And we hope that we are very close to the end, to have the buildings ready in order to have a stable basis, right? So Corfu institution needs a stable basis for all of us to come here and do science and social activity, of course. So we hope that you will be here for more than 30 more years to continue all this work. And we actually, through our hearts, we want to thank you for your contribution, both in science and the society. So thank you, George.